talking about like the way that the public views these allegations and the way that abuse is portrayed. Now, yeah. And for the record, going back to that though, and this is a good opportunity to segue back into it. First half of this video is going to be all Amber Heard's perspective. And then the second half of this video is going to be Johnny Depp's perspective on 5 of the 14 instances of abuse that were mentioned in the prior court case where Johnny Depp sued the dish rag The Sun. Matt Orchard does an incredible job at parsing through this. I promise you, this is the best video that you are going to watch on the subject matter. Straight the fuck up. And that's how you know, because it only has 100,000 views, okay? It's not like a fucking highlight reel of like Johnny Depp looking sexy. It's not a highlight reel of like rad lib shit talking about how like Amber Heard is the sole victim in the situation. It's simply a very good and non-sensationalized approach to this case.
I'd argue the amount of attention we give to those who are good-looking and charismatic enough to wind up on a large or small screen is completely disproportionate to the amount of value they really bring to the world. We would argue there's no point in bemoaning that which is never going to change. Maybe in an ideal world, it would be the faces of soup kitchen volunteers we'd see plastered on the covers of all our magazines. But this just isn't in keeping with human nature. It is, of course, the people we see frequently, albeit not in person in this case, that we develop an interest in. The fact that that interest for many of us goes beyond what project they're making next and into areas like how large their homes are, what parties they're going to, and who they're dating may not be strictly logical, but it is in keeping with human nature, so there's not much to be gained from trying to fight it. Having said that, over the last 20 years or so, the culture of celebrity watching has maybe started to get a bit out of hand. As mobile technology has improved exponentially, so too has the ability of notable people to put more of themselves out to the world, as well as the ability of paparazzi to hound those with less exhibitionistic tendencies. And it's in this area of entertainment where we begin to get a glimpse of a darker side of celebrity obsession. Any paparazzo knows snapping a photo of a star during a moment of weakness, or better yet, profound existential pain, can be worth just as much as snagging an exclusive shot of an A-list wedding. Because at the same time as we find an escape in fantasizing about people with lives so much better than our own, there's an even deeper satisfaction that comes from the realization that below the surface, the lived experience of some of these same people may be just as crappy as ours. In some ways, maybe even worse. And when it comes to train wrecks and the personal lives of celebrities spiraling out of control, to an extent they become a seemingly endless soap opera for the masses to consume as each episode plays out in the media, there has been no better example in recent years than the short-lived marriage and ever-enduring separation and feud between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Though just because the saga has and is now continuing to play out in the media as the warped form of entertainment that has just been described, don't mistake this video's preamble as insinuating the accusations made by Mr. Depp and Miss Heard, or the issues surrounding said accusations, are any laughing matter. And also don't be lulled into some sort of illusion that just because the subject of today's video is a messy celebrity divorce, it will somehow be shallower than some of the more customary criminological subjects explored in other installments from this channel.
Wild thing is Kim K was caught leaking her own location for paparazzi. What do you mean caught? They do this. This is common practice. When you see people, get snapped by paparazzi, more often than not, if they look good, that is on purpose. They told the paparazzi to be there. If you see them look bad, and in a lot of instances, like they stop this practice regardless, they find it to be a gross violation of people's privacy, which it is. If they like look terrible at the beach or something because they're like kneeling over or whatever, like normal humans do. That's stuff that the paparazzi finds on their own. But all of the other, like the Britney Spears style paparazzi shit is completely, it's gone. It's the days of the past. But the Kardashians themselves absolutely weaponize paparazzi regularly. And now, instead of weaponizing the paparazzi, they just have their own fucking marketing and they have their own show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, where basically you do the exact same thing. They make content out of their own personal experiences that they craft a specific narrative around, including, like, if you followed this at all, the Kanye West saga, the Ray J the Ray J sex tape saga, the Roblox saga. The latest season of the Keeping Up with the Kardashians is completely fake. 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Everything from like Kim being like, "Oh my God, my son saw, the fucking."
Good streamer.
You're completely wrong. I'm 1,000,000% right on this. Okay, the idea that there was like a Roblox sex tape out there or some shit like, and then like the kids saw it, and then Kim was like losing her shit. That was planet. It's not real. 1,000,000%. And if you believe that, I don't know what to tell you. That's crazy. But what is real that we are going to be watching now is a very real and very public case of domestic abuse, and one side basically dominating the narrative in the build up to this defamation case that we've been following this past week, and how new evidence and new information, and a judge that isn't like completely and psychotically obsessively on one side, allowing information to flow through to the public, and kind of reframing the narrative of someone who was deeply disturbed and certainly abusive as well, getting their day in court, I guess, in a defamation suit, where Johnny Depp is able to reframe the narrative around what Amber Heard had claimed he was doing.
If only. Truth be told, today's case is one with so many events, claims, witness statements, recordings, and other miscellaneous pieces of evidence, that one of the most challenging parts about making the video has been figuring out where to begin, where to end, and what to include in between. As you likely know, it is a domestic violence case, and in terms of what has played out in court, it is one comprised of 14 incidents. Covering all 14 in enough detail to be fair to both sides would be unrealistic for the format, and covering them all in a manner that is relatively expedient and digestible would result in analysis so superficial it would render itself pointless. So what we have done instead is narrowed it down from 14 to 5 incidents, choosing the ones to keep based on how significant to the case they are overall, the amount of raw evidence and witness accounts there are pertaining to them to limit the amount of he said, she said, and that provide a decent enough spread of information that might cast either side in a negative or positive light, in the hope that doing so will leave you with more or less the same stance you'd have if you went through every piece of information involved with the case cover to cover, though there are plenty of resources in the description for if you're not so sure of that once all is said and done. Even just the 5 key incidents contain enough details to get very convoluted very quickly, so to try to make things as easy to follow as possible, we're going to run through them twice. The first time we'll tell the story of Depp and Heard's relationship and the 5 chosen incidents.
It's a very good video for this reason.
And entirely from the perspective of Amber Heard's lengthy witness statement, taking all of her accusations completely at face value. After that, we'll take a look at each incident from more of an investigative perspective, presenting Depp's version of events as well as evidence that both sides have put forward to support their case. And then there will be a final section where we put forward some choice odds and ends in the case. Details that did not fit naturally into our 5 chosen incidents, but that we felt could be seen as egregious to leave on the cutting room floor. As you can probably tell by this point, we have quite a lot to get through, so let's get started.
Don't get triggered when you see this is going to look
In
the first half of
2009,
this is the
filming
first half of this
began-
is going to make it seem like it's very pro Amber, by the way, because it's just admittedly only covering Amber Heard's perspective in the first half.
And for the 2011 feature, The Rum Diary. The film, based on Hunter S. Thompson's novel of the same name, would go on to perform poorly at the box office, receive mixed reviews at best from critics, and ultimately prove to be totally forgettable in every way but one. It facilitated the introduction of one of the century's biggest movie stars, Johnny Depp, to the up-and-coming movie starlet, Amber Heard.
Oh, God. Why did she have to happen? Just when I was doing so good without her.
By 2012, Depp and Heard were an item. The 23-year age gap raised some eyebrows, but love knows no boundaries. And even if it did, most 50-year-old men are not quite as appealing to 27-year-old women as Johnny Depp. In 2015, Depp and Heard married, tying the knot with a small ceremony on Depp's private island in the Bahamas. To the outside world, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's union was as picturesque as one would expect a Hollywood couples to be. But as we now know, below the surface, the relationship was no fairy tale. By Heard's account, as early as 2013, a pattern had begun, which should sound very familiar to anyone who has been unfortunate enough to fall victim to domestic violence. One of abuse, followed by remorse, then reconciliation and a period of calm, before the cycle repeats itself.
It was a great band, by
While
the way.
most of the time, Depp exhibited the gentle, quirky demeanour that the public knew him for and she had fallen in love with, he had also begun losing his lifelong battle with substance abuse, regularly drinking to excess, as well as using a wide range of illicit drugs. And often when he was under the influence, a much darker side of him emerged, one that he and Heard would come to call the Monster. When the monster took over, Depp would become wickedly mean-spirited, directing verbal and often physical abuse at Heard. In the days that followed, he would apologise and ultimately convince Heard that he was determined to get back on the wagon. But as time went on, the monster only seemed to grow stronger, and the damage it inflicted only more severe. One toxic element that had begun to emerge in the relationship quite early on was an intense jealousy within Johnny Depp. He would develop suspicions that Heard was having an affair with just about any male co-star she was working with, and was remarkably sensitive about the prospect of her being involved in physically intimate scenes for a man who had been a screen actor for 30 years. This jealousy was the primary driver behind the first incident we're covering in detail. On May 24th, Heard told Depp over the phone that she would be filming such a scene with James Franco for a film they were working on called The Adderall Diaries. Depp responded angrily. Later that day, Heard waited for Depp in his private jet that was set to fly from Boston to LA. When he arrived...
For the record, this, out of all of the allegations of abuse, I think the reason why I say that there is mutual abuse and the reason why I have said and maintained the position that Johnny Depp is not like the perfect hero or anything like that is because of this instance. The private jet instance is one where, one, there are additional victims, and two, I believe Amber Heard's side is more true than Johnny Depp's side, and you'll understand why.
He was clearly high. During the flight, Depp began to taunt Heard with lewd and humiliating comments, many of them insinuating she was having sex with James Franco. Heard was particularly mortified by Depp's behaviour, as he had multiple of his friends and personnel on the plane, and she was dismayed that he would degrade her so viciously in their company. Depp began challenging Heard to state how much she enjoyed getting off with James Franco on set, and after she refused to answer several times, he slapped her in the face. At a later point on the flight, as Heard got up to walk to another part of the plane while Depp was taunting her, he kicked her in the back, hard enough to make her fall to her hands and knees. Later, he took off one of his boots and threw it at her. At one point, he also threw a fork at her. Eventually, he went to the bathroom and passed out, having been drinking heavily throughout the flight, in addition to being under the influence of whatever drugs he had taken before boarding. This was the most extreme incident up until this point, and Heard had initially been resolute in ending the relationship because of it. But after repeated expressions of remorse, as well as promises that he would undergo detox, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard ultimately wound up back together.
And get back to this.
An incident is not really
we'll check back into that in a second. I gotta pee,
as
though.
it spans the course of several days. Depp and Heard were staying in a private resort on the Gold Coast of Australia. Having gotten married a month earlier, they were having arguments about pre- and post-nuptial agreements. Depp had again fallen off the wagon, if it can be said he had ever truly been on it. At one point, Heard claims he downed 10 MDMA capsules. Depp berated and assaulted Heard multiple times over a 3-day stretch, but the epicenter of this incident is in the second day. Heard went downstairs to find Depp in the games room, having been up all night on ecstasy. Lines of cocaine were on a nearby countertop, and he was drinking from a bottle of Jack Daniels. Heard said something to the effect that his substance abuse was getting seriously out of hand, and soon Depp was flying into another rage. He grabbed her neck and shoved her against a fridge, telling her he could easily crush her neck. She managed to get away from him and out of the room, but he continued to assault her throughout the day, and eventually pushed Heard to her limit. Sometime after the assault in the games room, Depp was still drinking booze from the bottle and began taunting Heard, asking if she wanted to take the bottle from him, which prompted her to snatch it from his hand and smash it on the ground. Depp then flew completely off the handle. He began picking up full liquor bottles and hurling them at Heard as she ran from him. He grabbed her by the hair and threw her across a room where she smashed into a ping-pong table which collapsed under her. Shortly thereafter, Depp was gripping Heard's neck and repeatedly bashing her head into the fridge, screaming she made him do this. At this point, Heard's bare feet were beginning to get cut up by broken glass on the ground. He stripped her naked, ripping off the nightgown she was wearing, and started grabbing her breasts. At one point, he ripped a mounted phone off the wall and began repeatedly smashing it right next to Heard's face. Though in the midst of the chaos, Heard did not notice at the time. Depp had slammed the phone with such velocity that in the process, he had severed the tip of one of his fingers. A lot more on that in part 2. Depp continued assaulting
It's okay, it's literally censored. I already pre-watched it.
Heard for some time, and over the course of everything, her hands and arms wound up badly scratched by broken glass. The episode was so severe, Heard genuinely feared that she might die, but finally Depp relented and she was able to retreat to the bedroom. She locked herself in and took sleeping pills to make it through the night. The next day, when she went downstairs, she found that Depp had painted various messages on a lampshade, a sofa, and various mirrors, some of them scrawled in his own blood. Among the messages were the words "Easy Amber" and "Starring Billy Bob," alluding to an affair Depp suspected Heard was having with Billy Bob Thornton. Heard found Depp in an office, still drinking from a nearly empty bottle of Jack Daniels. More verbal abuse followed, but upon learning how badly injured Depp's finger was, Heard was ultimately able to convince Depp to contact his security team, who arrived sometime thereafter and took him to a hospital. But not before Depp began urinating in the house, attempting to write Amber Heard's name on the walls and carpet.
So I want to push back a little bit on this because I want to push back a little bit on this immediately because like this is definitely one where like this is on Johnny's side for sure. Like this Amber Heard's position on this is ridiculous, and Johnny Depp is correct in this matter. And as a matter of fact, I'd even go so far as to say this instance of abuse, this is Amber's version of the events, obviously. These are Amber's testimony and Amber's version of the events that took place. Remember, this is just the Amber side first. But this, and the judge's opinion, the prior judge's opinion in the UK, the Oibrov judge's opinion in the UK on this court case, specifically looking at this one incident, is what made me really reconsider, reconsider the situation across the board, and certainly realize that like this and the other one, there's another one where like she claims she was fucking bruised in the face and that Johnny had hit her and headbutted her and stuff like that. Those two incidents together basically destroyed the credibility of the prior judge on the libel case against the son, or the libel case against the son, where the judge basically fucking literally sided with Amber Heard on all of them.
Again, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard ultimately reconciled after this incident.
Coordinated drip campaign. It continues with the slick brown jacket thing.
On the night of December 15th, Heard was assaulted by Depp in one of their LA penthouses. During the assault, he dragged her around various rooms by her hair and tore several clumps of it out as she struggled to get free. At one point in this incident, Heard decided to make a gesture of defiance. When Depp knocked her to the floor, she stood back up and looked him straight in the eye. This angered him, and he knocked her down again. This pattern repeated itself several times until Depp took a step back and headbutted Heard in the face, causing her nose to bleed.
This is the other one that's bullshit, by the way, straight up. This is the other one. Why is he making it sound like it's facts? Because he's just showing Amber Heard's side first. You will understand what he's trying to do now, but this and the way that the judge deliberated on this made me realize, like, oh, fuck, the previous judge was bullshit, okay?
At this point, Heard resolved to leave Depp for good, and warned him that if he touched her again, she would call the police. But this did not deter him from continuing to assault her. More slapping, hair-pulling, choking, etc. Eventually, Depp was on top of Heard on a bed.
There's a recording of him saying he headbutted her, though? Yes, I know. We are going to hear... Can we just wait for a moment? Can we wait? Or do you want me to explain it? It doesn't matter. Because he openly admitted in court as well in this round of the legal drama in the defamation case that he was trying to subdue her and their heads butted against one another. But ultimately, she claimed that her nose was broken. She had 2 black eyes. She had lumps of fucking hair taken off of her head. That she was beaten severely, as you can see in the deposition ahead of you, in front of you, whereas multiple fucking witnesses involved immediately after and throughout the entire fucking process deny seeing any bruises whatsoever, including Amber Heard's fucking friends, who had no reason to lie against Amber Heard or claim that she was fucking wrong. There's literally a medical professional involved in this incident that openly took fucking notes and said that there were no visible bruises. She went in and actually wrote that shit down. And the judge still sided with Amber Heard and said this could have been possible, that Johnny Depp brutally beat the shit out of her. So you're making me ruin the video, but like Johnny Depp openly admits that he was trying to, while he was getting punched in the back of the fucking head, turned around and tried to subdue her and like stop her from punching him, as you do in a situation like that, and their heads clash with one another. Johnny Depp basically is still in that conversation that you're referencing, saying, after she said, you headbutted me, he said, my headbutt clashed with your fucking forehead. How can I break your nose in that situation? You basically repeating what she had said. That doesn't mean he actually fucking cracked back and like hit her in the head. What is it, Zinedine Zidane, dude? You think Johnny Depp was just like running around fucking headbutting motherfuckers? Like, that's a crazy move to pull on people. But again, it doesn't matter, because you probably also fucking think that like he cut his own finger because he said, I cut my finger in a fucking text message, because that's what the Amber Heard side literally is. The Amber Heard defense straight up is Johnny Depp cut his own finger, because in a text message he said, I cut my finger. And in another text message he joked about, fuck. Oh my God, that was so good. Oh, fuck. Not very feminist of chat, lol. Oh, fuck me. That was good. Because he joked about cutting his own finger, so it must have been real. He actually like took a fucking knife and chopped his own finger off, right?
Pushing her face down into the mattress and pulling out more of her hair. He had his knee on her back, his other foot on the bed frame, and he began punching her in the head. The last thing Heard remembered was the bed frame splintering before she blacked out. When she came to, she heard her friend Raquel Pennington, who lived in another penthouse on the same floor, crying out in shock. Pennington and another friend, Melanie Iglesias, who was also Heard's makeup artist, had let themselves in after not getting an answer at the door. They took pictures of the bed, Heard's facial injuries, and clumps of her hair that were lying on the carpet. Similar to the Australia incident, Depp left behind a note, scrawled on the kitchen counter with a gold Sharpie. It read, "Why be a fraud? All is such bullshit." Again, ultimately, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard remained together. On April 21st, Depp showed up to Heard's birthday party at
the... said pirates play finger roulette all the time? Yeah, dude. He was playing finger roulette. You're right. Yeah. You're just making up something that, I mean, I guess you're probably joking.
LA penthouse, 2 hours late and clearly drunk and high. After the attendees left, Heard expressed to Depp that she was disappointed and hurt by the slight, and soon he was in another rage. He threw a magnum bottle of champagne and other bottles and/or glassware at her, which resulted in her being hit by pieces of shattered glass. Eventually, Depp left the penthouse, smashing various pictures and photographs on his way out. The next day, Heard travelled with friends to the Coachella Music Festival. That same morning, one of Depp's housekeepers discovered what they deemed to be human feces in Depp and Heard's marital bed. Depp became convinced that either Heard or one of her friends was responsible, while Heard maintains the excrement would have come from one of her 2 Yorkshire Terriers. More on this in part 2, unfortunately.
Anthony just dropped the Hasan video? Fuck yeah, we're gonna watch it afterwards.
On the evening of May 21st.
Yes, it's official. My video, A Day in the Life with, or I Spent a Day with Hasan is out. Anthony Padilla interview is out. We're going to watch the fuck out of that after this.
Depp and Heard met in their LA penthouse to discuss their relationship and what promise, if any, it had. Depp was drunk and high again. He was still enraged over the feces incident. Fearing things would soon escalate to violence, Heard texted Raquel Pennington to come over. Depp made an accusation that another of Heard's friends, Io Tillett Wright, was responsible for the feces. Heard then called Wright, put him on speakerphone, and asked him to address the accusation, knowing it to be untrue. Given the inherent absurdity of the situation, Wright began laughing, and this pushed Depp over the edge. He snatched the phone from Heard and began screaming down the line at Wright, before throwing the phone and storming upstairs. Heard retrieved the phone and spoke to Wright, who urged her to leave the building. Before long, Depp had returned. He again snatched the phone from Heard, screamed at Wright one more time, then wound his arm up like a baseball pitcher and threw the phone with full force straight at Heard's face. It hit her right in the cheek and eye.
I said, "You hit me." I was crying. I said, "Johnny, hit me," because then I start hearing things being smashed, and I said to him, "Honey, you hit me in the eye, my eye. And I start crying, and he grabs my head, takes a fistful of my hair and says, I hit your eye, huh? Let me see your eye. Let me see your eye. What if I pull your hair back? And he yanks my head back, and he's, I don't know, smacking my face or moving my face or yanking me from side to side with my hair. I don't know if he's trying to grab my face or if he's hitting my face or I don't know what's happening, but he's yelling at me. He's screaming about let's see how hard I hit you, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs.
Okay.
Help, please help. I guess I say call 911. I'm screaming for help, not just in case Io is on the phone, which I don't know because the phone is somewhere after hitting my face. I don't know where it ricocheted and bounced off to.
It was around this time that Raquel Pennington arrived on scene. There was a scuffle as Pennington attempted to defend Heard, and then Depp began drinking from a Magnum wine bottle and smashing various objects with it. Depp's security team arrived at this point and were able to convince Depp to leave the premises, though he continued to smash and throw various objects as he left, and spilled wine in the penthouse and outside hallway. Pennington and her husband, Josh Drew, took pictures of the damage that Depp left in his wake, including the injury to Heard's face. It was this incident that proved to be the final straw.
An ugly red mark is visible on the face of Johnny Depp's movie star wife Amber Heard as she leaves court with her lawyer Friday. 30-year-old Heard is claiming domestic abuse by Depp. A judge granted her request for a temporary restraining order, calling on Depp to stay 100 yards away. The hearing came as this shocking photo came to light, a nasty bruise clearly visible. The photo was reportedly taken Saturday night. One report claims Depp threw an iPhone at her.
People has learned exclusively that this is not an isolated incident, so while this photo is very shocking and it's news to a lot of people, the source tells us it's just the latest incident like this.
These additional photos were attached to the court documents. They show Amber's nasty bruises, plus an injury to her chin. And these photos from inside Johnny Depp's house show a shattered picture. Shards of glass are on the floor. This photo is a bottle of wine on the floor along with a red stain, presumably from the thrown bottle. Amber Heard broke down in tears as she was driven from the courtroom in an SUV. The shocking photos couldn't come at a worse time for Depp, who was on a promotional tour for his new movie Alice Through the Looking Glass. Now he has serious issues to deal with.
But for a time, he was able to deal with those serious issues in a manner that did not entail the incineration of his career and public image. Depp and Heard reached a settlement in the process of finalizing their divorce, in which Depp paid Heard $7 million, and neither party really admitted to any wrongdoing. They released a joint statement that read, "Our relationship was intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. Neither party has made false accusations for financial gain. There was never any intent of physical or emotional harm." Translation: Depp did not admit being an abuser, Heard did not admit being a liar or a gold digger, and both of them were free to move on with their lives. As part of their arrangement, Heard dropped the restraining order, and both parties signed non-disclosure agreements to ensure there would be no further mudslinging in the press. And that's by and large what proceeded to happen over the course of the next year or so, with both
until the sun came out of the fucking gates swinging, boys.
Heard and Depp continuing to work as prominent movie stars. Most notably, Heard starring as Mira in the Aquaman film franchise, and Depp as Dark Wizard Gellert Grindelwald in the Harry Potter spin-off Fantastic Beasts franchise.
Let's be real though, this was trash anyway. But hey, you know, that's separate. You know, he lost that role and stuff, but also this was trash.
The latter of which was at the root of things becoming openly acrimonious again when on the 27th of April of 2018, executive editor and columnist for British tabloid The Sun, Dan Wooten, penned an article on The Sun's website strongly criticising J.K. Rowling for openly expressing delight over Depp's casting, in light of the Harry Potter author's outspoken support for women's rights, contrasting with Depp's reputation as a, quote, wife-beater. That prompted Depp to sue The Sun's publishing company, News Group newspaper, and Wooten for libel, which led to a 3-week trial in London that commenced in July 2020, with Heard testifying as the defendant's key witness. Depp also took the stand.
The judge in the UK was just a fucking freak, okay? Straight freak shit. I'm gonna be honest. It's just like the unconditional support that the judge delivered to Amber Heard in that trial is actually ridiculous. But you'll find out why.
And for several days. You probably already know what the outcome was.
It was the backdrop to this summer's legal blockbuster. Today at the High Court, Amber Heard and The Sun newspaper emerged victorious. The actor claimed her bruises were inflicted by ex-husband Johnny Depp. The judge accepted this and the description of Depp as a wife-beater.
Today it's probably cost Johnny Depp hundreds of...
And remember, like, ultimately in Britland, okay, in Oibrovland, it is actually much easier to sue someone for defamation. It's much easier to sue someone for libel Like, it's wild that Johnny Depp actually failed on this one, straight up.
Millions of dollars, and he can make
it's
all
not
the
like America at all
after the verdict and all the statements he wants, but the words are Johnny Depp, wife beater, and the consequences of that are when big family movies are being cast, they're not going to cast Johnny Depp.
Announcing he would appeal, Depp's legal team said the decision is as perverse as it is bewildering. Most troubling is the judge's reliance on the testimony of Amber Heard and corresponding disregard of the mountain of counter-evidence. With very few witnesses to their violent arguments, the judge had to decide who was telling the truth. He came to the conclusion that on the vast majority of occasions, it was Amber Heard. The judge
vast majority of cases out of the 14 incidents, the judge was like, in 12 of them, physical violence and abuse was probably the case. Literally took hook, line, and sinker Amber Heard's defense, saying, oh, yes, I was physically abusive, even including in the fucking finger cutting incident. Oh, yes, I was physically abusive, but I was only doing that to defend myself from how powerful and scary Johnny Depp was, okay, who was physically much larger than me and intimidating, right? The judge literally said, even in circumstances where she admitted to fucking, beating the shit out of him or hitting him or fucking in that incident where like his finger was cut off, that yes, Amber Heard probably was in fear of her life and that's why she behaved the way that she did. Even in instances where like she was the one who was fucking responsible, like the responsible party. And also the way that perfectly fucking aligns with what Amber Heard openly stated in phone conversations that were leaked after during their original divorce deliberations or the divorce conversations, makes it so much more damning because she literally fucking turned around and was like, no one's going to believe you, Johnny. No one's going to believe you if you say you abuse me. Fair? You think it's fair? You think it's a fair fight? You're so much larger than me. No one's going to believe you. Go ahead. Tell people that I abused you. And no one will believe you. That's precisely what she said. And it was true. This fucking court did not believe him.
Dismissed the idea that Miss Heard was a gold digger and accepted her career had probably been damaged by the revelations.
I traveled here to the UK to testify as a witness to assist the court. After obtaining a restraining order in 2006.
So also, if I'm going to be fucking charitable to the Oibrev land, okay? The fact of the matter is, there is at least one out of the fucking 14 incidents where Johnny Depp was physical with Amber Heard and was fully in the wrong, okay? The private jet incident. So, because of that, technically you could say Johnny Depp is a wife beater, okay? You could say that, even though in the other instances, Amber Heard either fucking made shit up or literally fucking was the responsible party. There is that one specific incident where that is true, not 12 out of the 14, but 1 out of the 14 incidents in the private jet specifically. Johnny Depp was the abusive party. He himself recognized that he was the abusive party. We will get to that in a little bit, but no, the plane one is not fake, no.
16 and finalizing my divorce. I just wanted to move on with my life. I did not file this lawsuit, and despite its significance, I would have preferred not to be here in court. It has been incredibly painful to relive the breakup of my relationship, to have my motives, my truth questioned, and the most traumatic and intimate details of my life with Johnny shared in court and broadcast to the entire world. I stand by my testimony. And finally, my heartfelt thanks for all of the tremendous and overwhelming outpouring of support that I have received and the many messages from all over the world. You have given me so much strength, and I send it back to you. Thank you.
The judge who presided over the trial, Justice Andrew Nicole, found that on the standard of the balance of probabilities, Johnny Depp was more likely than not to have been guilty of abusing Amber Heard in 12 out of the 14 incidents she alleged, including all 5 of the ones that this video has covered. We'll make reference to his rationale, as well as criticisms of it, as we go back and unpack the actual evidence pertaining to said incidents, starting right now.
Understood what you are and who you are and how you fucked me over and make me feel sick of myself.
I really fell off, man.
The audio you're listening to right now is a recording from March 8th.
Yeah, you're right. I fell off the bed after fucking your mom last night. Oh, God. Oh, man. Oh, God. Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Just kidding. I'm not sorry. Get fucked is what I said to your mom. Consensually, of course. She loved it. Oh, God. Double fucked. Got him. Jesus Christ. Okay. Jesus Christ was what your dad was saying in the closet watching me fuck your mom. I'm your new dad now. You are grounded.
2015. Following the incident in Australia, we're in the tip of one of Johnny Depp's fingers
what your dad said
it isn't
when I invited him into the threesome.
On the recording device that captured the audio, though common sense tells us it was almost certainly Mr. Depp or Miss Heard, even though both parties have denied being responsible.
Also, your mom
As you
has
may
COVID
have guessed, the voice you just heard was Depp screaming at Heard, which doesn't do a lot to begin casting him in a more positive light. It's when other voices appear, seemingly unaware they're being recorded, that things start to get interesting, however. There are two people audible in the first section we'll play, Dr. David Kipper and Nurse Debbie Lloyd. Kipper is Depp's doctor and has been treating him mainly for addiction issues. He and Nurse Lloyd are on scene in response to the finger situation. It should be noted that the subtitle...
Low-key worst doctor in America. Okay, not very successful.
We're going to put forward
I'm
based
kidding.
on the
addiction issues are really, really hard to fucking combat. But
of YouTuber Incredibly Average, who is very much in Depp's camp. Some of it we can hear clearly. Other parts are much tougher to make out, and there could certainly be room for confirmation bias, so take it with as much of a grain of salt as you see fit. Dr. Kipper describes he and his team struggle to find the tip of Depp's finger, and a little while later he calls out to Jerry Judge, Depp's head of security, who is also on scene.
But he passed away.
They can't be together now since the So, however, Amber, I think she should be in Los Angeles to support this. And this act runs first. And this is not going to be 2 days, it's going to be 2 days.
How about I think somebody needs to find her.
Jerry can follow.
She won't touch her.
Sure. Yes, I don't give a shit. I mean, I don't need to validate what you're saying.
No, but I'm just wondering if there's another person.
Well, I asked the same question earlier, and it all goes to that. For that reason. He's not going to be
The first thing you likely would have noticed at this point is that Dr. Kipper seems to have insinuated that Heard is responsible for Depp's injury. Again, that's if you trust the transcription. The moments he's supposed to allude to that are admittedly difficult to make out. Beyond that, though, the general tone in the room seems...
Bro, that's not that difficult to parse through. I mean, that's just pretty clear cut, I think.
completely incongruous with Heard's version of events. You'll recall the Australia incident was one of the most severe. If Heard's account is correct, she should currently have fresh glass cuts all over her hands and arms, as well as presumably numerous bruises after assaults that included having her head repeatedly bashed into a fridge and being thrown onto a ping pong table. Nothing in the way Dr. Kipper and Nurse Lloyd are speaking to each other reflect her being in such a state.
He's got this all over. I mean, he's going to get infected so that we have some cards.
How big of a piece of skin are you looking for?
We're looking at this. We're looking at a third of the head of the finger. And that's, I mean, he's going to get cellulitis. That lets him know what to do.
Next, we're going to jump to a point where Jerry Judge can be heard speaking on the phone to Christy Dembrowski, Johnny Depp's sister. Judge has some very notable things to say about Heard's injuries that might provide some insight as to why no one seems to be at all concerned about them. Fortunately, he's close enough to the recording device that in this instance, we don't need to trust anyone else's interpretation of what's being said.
I've seen you in bed, I've not seen this bed, and when I said he wrecked his place, I mean, it's wrecked, no problem, it's particularly, I think she did, it was a cut from, it missed, there's been bottles from, she admits to me, she threw a bottle on me, she did it first, she admits to me that, and I said, she says, I said, really grateful things for you, in my temper, he was shouting out, screaming out, hands scratches on her left arm, which Dave told me about. Quick look at it, and I've seen those scratches before on other people, and it's not done, it's just self-inflicted. I'm convinced about it, it's self-inflicted. At the moment, I'll do a deal with the devil, I'll say it down, because we'll be sending God to kill us, to turn around, and probably even on this, to get this whole thing calmed down. You know, I've been hurt, I've been hurt, he's told me to say, I don't understand why. And she admitted also that she hit him first. She actually hit him in the face.
So what exactly is Depp's version of what transpired in the hours preceding this recording? According to Depp, all of the tales of copious drinking and drug taking are untrue. He was sober for most of his stay in Australia, but this changed on the 8th. No. Heard had been relentlessly yelling at and taunting him after she became enraged from learning he wanted her to sign a post-nuptial agreement. Depp made multiple attempts to avoid the argument entirely by hiding from Heard and
Of course, Depp's team would want it, think it's self-inflicted. Sounds sus. First of all, at a certain point you have to notice that, like, a lot of the injuries, especially in the future, you'll realize that a lot of the injuries that are being talked about are exaggerated. And there are no witnesses for it. And in instances where there are witnesses, including fucking Amber, like witnesses that would normally be on Amber Heard's side, those witnesses say similar things to witnesses that are on Johnny Depp's side. And this is an instance where, like, an altercation has already occurred. Why are you thinking with your hindsight vision where you are assuming that in this traumatic incident, the guard is thinking, oh, this will be evidence for the future? You know what I mean? Like, he's not thinking that. He's literally looking at the situation going, like, he can be biased, certainly against Amber Heard, but no one in that circumstance, including the doctors especially, are not looking at this situation and going, oh yeah, let's cut this out right now so that we have future evidence in an inevitable fucking court proceeding where they are very publicly going through a defamation suit. They don't even know that they're being recorded in that situation. Also, she cut his finger off by throwing not one but two bottles in his vicinity.
Various bathrooms throughout the residence they were staying at. Apparently he had learned...
Literally the entire tone in the dialogue is trying to cover the situation up. Yeah, I mean, I too have schizophrenia. It's fine. I don't, but I ultimately assume that it's just like a conversation that they're having just to cover it up. You're right.
And from experience at this point, that engaging with Heard when she was in a certain temper would only cause things to escalate further. All of the screaming and insults caused him to break his clean streak and turn to drink, pouring himself a glass of vodka in the downstairs bar and drinking it. When Heard discovered him drinking, she became further enraged, grabbed the bottle of vodka, and threw it at Depp. It narrowly missed his face and smashed into pieces against a wall. Defiant, Depp then retrieved a second, larger, handle bottle of vodka, poured himself another glass, and began drinking that. Heard then grabbed that nearly full handle bottle of vodka and threw that at Depp. This time, her aim was more on point.
My hand was resting on the marble of the bar like that when she threw it from about this distance. And it smashed into the bar, which, and this finger, who I now call Little Richard, was the tip of the finger was severed, and all the bone in here was completely shattered. I mean, it looked like Vesuvius.
A big problem with this incident is there are no other witnesses to the event itself. We have some audio of third parties seeming to voice their suspicions of Heard, and the claim that Heard is screaming out things like, "I didn't do it on purpose." But even if that transcription is accurate, we can't say with certainty that she's referencing the severing of Depp's finger. Though while it can't be said that Heard has ever been caught on
God damn, bro. 2018 Johnny Depp versus 2022 Johnny Depp is like me pre-COVID, post-COVID. Holy fuck. Actually worse.
Unambiguously acknowledging responsibility. There is one recording, separate to the one we just sampled, where it sounds like she might be on the knife's edge of doing so. This is from a phone conversation that took place sometime after the final incident. In it, Depp and Heard are mainly negotiating how amicably they will be able to handle their divorce, and whether or not they will need to take things to court. Depp recorded the call on speakerphone, presumably without Heard's knowledge.
The last time that it got crazy between us, I really did think I was going to lose my life, and I thought you would do it on accident. And I told you that. I said, oh my God, I thought for the first time.
Amber, I lost a finger, man. Come on. I had a mineral can of mineral spirits thrown at my nose.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence.
By the way, this is literally, again, incredibly triggering if you've been a victim of abuse and like your girlfriend or other partner has gaslit you into saying like no one's gonna believe you. Super manipulative. But also she was right. She was right. Just saying. She was right.
And yes. It's a fair fight. It sees how many people believe or side with you.
It doesn't matter if it's a fair fight.
Exactly, because you're bigger and you're stronger. So when I say that I thought you could kill me, that doesn't mean you counter with you also that you lost your own finger.
Do you believe you're an abuser? Do you believe you abused me physically?
Do I physically believe? do I believe I physically abused you?
Yes.
Do you know I'm 115? Well, not anymore, but I was 115 pounds. I'm a 115 pound woman, and you're 6. I have the capacity of you.
That's not the question. That's not the question.
Have I ever been able to knock you off of your feet?
You started these things.
You're going to get up on the stand, Johnny, and say she started it? Really? I have never been able to overpower you. That's the difference between me and you.
Why did you try?
And that's the difference that the whole world and the jury and the judge will see. There is a very big difference between me and you.
And while we're on the subject of...
She was right, once again. Like, she's straight up saying it, okay? And she was right. She went in front of the public, and the Oybrev court was like, yep, it's true. We will take her side on this.
Of non-denials. If you were wondering about all those strange messages scrawled on mirrors and furniture...
It's embarrassing she won't admit who started it. No, she did. She did say she admitted she started it. What are you talking about? No, she did. She said, go ahead. It doesn't matter. Even if I started it, I'm so much weaker than you. So you pushing back and fighting back is not a fair fight. Also, she's admitted to abusing him multiple times.
Depp acknowledges he was in fact responsible for those, including the ones in his own blood.
You're so off base. This is him being manipulative. Brother or sister in Christ and brothers in Christ. What is wrong with your fucking brain, dude? I already admitted that Johnny Depp was abusive on the fucking private jet, okay? His testimony is bullshit in comparison to his own personal text messages after. Johnny Depp has also said some crazy shit in other text messages after the relationship, like fuck that cum-hungry whore, slut, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's like misogynistic. He's an addict. He himself, in certain circumstances, was the party that was responsible, okay? Stop saying admitted. But ultimately, only one side got out of that relationship and was able to make the other side look like the responsible party. Yeah, and that's enough for him being guilty. You eventually hit back after being abused for so long. Yeah, well, you know what, dude? Suck my fucking dick, dumbass, okay? Fuck you. You fucking stupid idiot, dude. You are so fucking disgusting. You misandrist, psychotic, rad femme, Absolute dingus, you. Oh my fucking God. You have created a narrative in your mind that is no different than these fucking incels who say stuff like, fantasize about like murdering Amber Heard and putting her in a fucking trunk or some shit. You are literally just the opposite side of it. And because there's no structural violence perpetrated against men in a similar capacity, you can get away with saying all this dumb shit. And usually I let it happen. I let it slide. But in a circumstance where I'm being as even-handed as possible in a fucking a mutually abusive relationship where like one side's abuse is going unnoticed, I'm not going to let you fucking just say the most insane, false bullshit in the face of fucking facts. God damn, dude. Shut the fuck up. You are such a fucking sick freak, dude. You sick, twisted fucking freak. Oh my God. You femcel piece of shit. All it took was for like all it took was for an admission of like one singular instance. So every single time, including the fucking marriage counselor personally saying that every time Johnny Depp tried to exit a situation, Amber Heard would start fights. Would start actual fucking fights. Specifically, knowing full well that if the fight was going on, that Johnny Depp would not be able to leave. And Johnny Depp would physically try to let himself leave the situation, exit the room, physically leave, and then she would escalate to violence. She would escalate to physical acts. That's a fact from this court case. That is an unbiased third party. I'm not talking about the sexy counselor chick from like 2 days ago. I'm talking about the other one, not the one that like should not have said that Amber Heard has BPD, but she did, and that's like malpractice in my opinion. I'm talking about the actual marriage counselor from a couple days ago. Okay? Who said that it was a mutually abusive relationship, but Amber Heard was the one who was consistently starting fights, specifically to make sure that Johnny Depp stayed in the relationship and like stayed in that abuse. How are you going to look at all that and still go, nope, the woman is the right in all of these circumstances? Like, what's wrong with your fucking brain, dude? Jesus Christ. Why? Why are you allowing fucking men's right activists and like other dickheads to come across like there is a human being out there that legitimately is like, nope, believe women means literally believe women unconditionally, literally just never assume that women are capable of doing any sort of like abusive, capable of engaging in abusive fucking behavior. Jesus Christ.
His explanation is that he was in shock. He denies the part about trying to write Heard's name with his urine on the walls and carpet. In terms of why Justice Andrew Nicole ultimately found it was Heard's account that was more likely to be truthful, much of it came down to text messages Depp sent to various people in the lead up to the incident. One message in particular, sent on March 6th to his assistant Stephen Duters, showed him seeming to express deep bitterness about his career and legacy. This does not in and of itself speak to his being culpable of beating Heard, of course, but it does speak to him being in a foul mood at the time, independent of any arguments he may have been having about post-nuptial agreements. Nicole also found Depp's overall credibility to be damaged by his claim to have been sober for months leading up to pouring that glass of vodka. He had in fact been messaging his assistant, Nathan Holmes, in the days leading up to the incident, trying to procure, quote, happy pills and whitey stuff, which was taken as meaning MDMA and cocaine. He had also had the Australia house stocked up with alcohol. Depp's explanations were that the happy pills referred to legitimate prescription drugs, and the alcohol he stocked the house with was for Heard and any visitors they might have. Justice Nicole simply didn't buy that. Depp's admitted scrawling of the messages certainly didn't help him either, especially the one that read starring Billy Bob and Easy Amber, as the obvious reference to Billy Bob Thornton, Amber Heard's recent co-star in the film London Fields, aligned with
I think the irony here is that Johnny Depp was in a relationship and like fucked Amber Heard on Rum Diaries and like ended up leaving his prior relationship to be with Amber Heard. So he was just jealous and carried that fucking rage and jealousy with him throughout that entire career as Amber Heard continued to have co-stars that he was deeply jealous of, from James Franco to Billy Bob Thornton. Some people say that they actually did fuck and that she did cheat on him with those people. I know James Franco one is real. Not sure about the Billy Bob Thornton one, but I do understand why he was paranoid about it, because he was insecure. But also on top of that, he was an addict. None of that is justification for him to be emotionally abusive or toxic in any meaningful capacity, obviously, which is why I'm saying he's not a perfect victim. But that doesn't change the reality that he was a victim in a lot of these incidents that the court, the Oibrov court, personally decided he was the fucking perpetrator on.
Heard's claims of a seething jealousy in Depp. The written word is something that didn't do Depp any favours when it came to the private plane incident either. Johnny Depp's version of what happened on the plane flight from Boston to LA is as follows. It was Amber Heard, and Amber Heard alone, who was guilty of abuse on that flight.
Is it insecurity if he literally was in the right and she was fucking them? That should be an accurate amount. I know, but the difference is like, here's the issue, okay? The issue is, if you're getting cheated on and you don't want it, you have to figure out a way to get out of that situation without being fucking physically or emotionally fucking abusive, okay? She's in the wrong, but you can't turn around and be like, all right, you're fucking cheating on me, so now I'm gonna fucking throw a fit and like draw shit all around the walls and all this other stuff, okay? Ultimately, Amber literally would then turn around and Johnny Depp didn't know this 100%, but Amber would, turn around and fucking try to squeeze every little fucking thing that she could and play with his emotions and force him into another altercation, even in moments where he was trying to get away from that said altercation. Draw on wall abuse? No, I'm not talking about the drawing on the walls and shit. I'm talking about like him lashing out and fucking freaking out and screaming at her and accusing her of cheating and all this other shit. It's just not healthy.
Had been berating him continuously, and he had been doing his best to not engage in any sort of confrontation. The allegation that he kicked her in the back is a fabrication that he believes she derived from the following episode on the plane.
Yeah, I don't believe this part. I don't believe Johnny's lawyers on this part.
And Depp reached out his leg with the intention of playfully tapping her on the behind as a sort of reconciliatory gesture. He doesn't believe he was actually able to make contact due to the positioning of the seat, but nevertheless, Heard noticed what he was doing and did not find it amusing, to put it mildly. She reacted with such intense anger that she had to be physically restrained by Jerry Judge and Depp's personal assistant Stephen Duters, which brings us to the first factor that makes this one of our chosen incidents. It has witnesses. Jerry Judge unfortunately passed away in 2019, but Stephen Duters was able to write up a sworn witness statement as well as take the stand for Depp. He affirmed Depp's account entirely. The second factor that makes this one of our chosen incidents, however, is that there are some very curious text messages related to it. And no matter what you ultimately believe happened on that plane, it would be very hard to argue the texts do not, at least at face value, seem to fall very much in line with Heard's account. The morning after the incident, Depp sent Heard a text in which he expressed, quote, shame and regret. He does not make any clear allusions to violence. In fact, he states he does not actually know what happened, and speaks of how he fell victim to his illness and needs to get better for both of them. In Depp's witness statement, he claimed to remember the flight vividly, but his text message paints a picture of a man who was heavily under the influence to the point of blackout.
This is the only incident where I do believe Amber Heard's side more than I believe Johnny Depp's side because of these text messages.
Just like what Heard described. In fact, contemporaneous messages to Heard from Stephen Duters himself seem more in line with Heard's account than his testimony. The morning after the incident, he sent her a text saying that while Depp could not remember much, after he was taken through what happened, he was very sorry and didn't want to be a fuck-up anymore. A direct quote from Depp, according to Duters. Again, we should note, no violence is mentioned, but it certainly doesn't sound like a situation where Depp was the wronged party. Heard responded to Duters, saying that she doubted Depp was truly being made aware of the full severity of what he had done. Duters' response here was particularly damning. Quote, when I told him he kicked you, he cried. It was disgusting, and he knows it.
Why would anybody say that if that wasn't real, by the way? Come on. This is why I'm saying that, like, I believe this incident on Amber's side.
The explanation that was offered for all of this by Johnny Depp and Stephen Duters was that Depp was merely trying to placate Heard and had instructed Duters to do the same. Justice Nicole did not buy this, especially in light of yet more text messages Depp sent to people he had no reason to placate. In a message to actor Paul Bettany sent on the 30th of May, Depp described himself on the flight as being, quote, an angry aggro Injun in a fucking blackout, screaming obscenities and insulting any fuck who gets near. One text Depp offered to counterweigh all of this was a message he sent to his sister on May 27th, in which he expresses frustration toward Heard and insinuates his only wrongdoing on the plane was breaking his sobriety.